Thank you very much. Let me greet and recognize each and every one of you individually and personally. Let me appreciate in a special way His Majesty, the King of Eswatini, King Mswati III. Let me also recognize our host, the President of Madagascar, Andre Rajolin, and thank him for the warm hospitality he has extended to all of us since our arrival on these shores. The President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, current chair, outgoing chair of SADC, President Emerson Dambuzo Mnangagwa, fellow heads of state and government who are gracing this event today, leaders representatives of heads of state, ministers who are here, the Executive Secretary of SADC, Mr. Elias Mpedi Mahosi, esteemed invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. We gather here today as bearers of the flame, a flame handed to us by our forebears, who charted this path long before some of us could care or count, that relayed this flame across generations, handed it to us for us to steward, so we can hand it to generations yet to come. The voices of these forebears continue to echo through the tunnels of time as both inspiration and guide to all of us. They inspire, they spoke, they enacted examples, they pointed the way, they laid open a whole spectrum of possibilities, and were worthy guides to our region and to our continent. We recognize, we love them so. We appreciate the contribution that they made, one and all. I also appreciate the second addition to that worthy cohort of women presidents on the African continent, in particular our region, SADC region, as I warmly recognize the President of the Republic of Namibia. And thank the Namibian people for giving us this leader. I hope and trust that she brings a feminine touch, a touch of compassion and deep care to a region facing pressing, persistent, and trenchant challenges. carry the responsibility of leading the country of Botswana, whose democracy faced its most serious test yet in the epic election of October 2024 that saw a party that had been in power for 58 years, certain of its success at the polls, assured of victory in every sense and respect, going into that election and losing spectacularly. Difficult moment that faced the then president. What would he do at that moment? Would he hand over peacefully and avoid strife and controversy? Or would he cling on to power and negate every tenet of democracy? That was the difficult question facing President Masisi of the Republic of Botswana on the 30th of October, the morning of the 1st of November. He had to make a call. He had to decide whether to plunge the country into chaos or to entrench its claims and cement its mettle and worth as a vibrant democracy. He made the call, and he handed over power peacefully, seamlessly. I am much in his debt for that brave and courageous decision that he took that fateful night. And he communicated in no uncertain terms. He said to me, "The count is still on. It looks you are winning. I want to give you my solemn assurance that if it continues like this, I will readily concede." These are words we would like to hear uttered in similar circumstances across the breadth and dimensions of the African continent. And if there is no inspiration, let Botswana be your guiding star, and others who've trodden this path before us, so that we cement and entrench the democratic credentials of not just the Southern African tip of the African continent, but the rest of the continent. We have recast the contours of democracy in the democratic space. And so, there was no democratic malfunction. Let there be no democratic malfunction anywhere on the African continent. Let us focus our collective attention on wrestling with the challenges that bedevil our continent. We have seen when the rough winds of circumstance demonstrated to us the challenge that faces multilateralism in today's world. We have seen how over-reliance on trade with certain powers of the world has rendered us so fatally vulnerable that we are now dependent on their mood swings. They determine what happens on the African continent. And this is because we've allowed ourselves to fall into a trap of self-loathing, where we've hated not just ourselves but our neighbors on the African continent. We've refused, we've been reluctant to trade with each other to see and recognize each other's worth. We've come to that point, that inflection point in our history, when we must recognize that we need each other. We need each other desperately as African countries, as Africans. We must reach out across barriers, across boundaries, across barricades, and find each other, and lean on each other, and hold each other by the hand as we strengthen, deepen intra-Africa trade. That's our only means of survival. We've spoken on this. There's been a lot of political rhetoric around these issues. We are at that point where words must now translate into tangible deliverables. Hundreds of thousands of our citizens across the breadth, the length of the African continent are still caught in the hellish death grip of poverty and unemployment. Africa is in distress. It is calling out to each and every one of us. That cry of distress is a call to the rescue. And we must rise here and now and into the future and respond to that cry of distress. And so we are here today to carve pathways from the inalterable circumstances of our existence with an appreciation that the institutions, the ways in which we've organized ourselves, are routinized and are collectivized, are stylized modes of behavior, must give way to transformative, radical, progressive ideas and actions. And with those few feeble words, let me exhort the whole SADC and indeed the whole of the African continent to action. Thank you so very much for the privilege of your coming here and the pleasure of your kind attention. Thank you so very much.